Good morning. We will call to order the May 25th, 2022 meeting of the Delaware County Board of Elections. Sitting next to me, I'm Gerald Lawrence. I'm a member of the Board of Elections. Sitting next to me is John McBlain, a member of the Board of Elections. Joining us this morning is Ashley Lunkenheimer, third member. The first item today is the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all rise. Pledge of Allegiance. You know, I've been coming here for almost 20 years. I had never noticed that there used to be a little flag over there in the corner. Mr. McBlain, who also coming here for a very long time in a different capacity and much more frequently, had pointed out to me today that flag was gone and we had to put our backs to the camera. In any event, I think it was moved to the back of the room. So we have the agenda. It's been distributed and circulated before the meeting. Is there any additions or changes proposed for the agenda? Ashley, can I just make sure we have your audio?
Yeah.
I see. Oh, good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had it. Very good. So the next item is the approval of the minutes from April 26th. They were distributed and reviewed beforehand. Is there any comment?
No.
Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Next item is the report from the Director of Elections.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good morning. Want to express to you my deep satisfaction and appreciation for having one of the best election staffs, not the best election staff in the United States. And I have to single out the performances of several key individuals. Jackie Dunn, new head of the warehouse, but runs it extremely well, came into this position having filled in during critical periods in the previous year in that same capacity, is the understudy, but is clearly elevated her game, dealt with a depleted phone bank staff, but we still maintained a responsiveness and a timeliness in terms of our responses to our poll workers and our voters' needs. Lorene Hagan, who's at the wharf right now, they're going to be processing later today the military overseas ballots that were eligible to arrive all the way through yesterday, as well as all provisional ballots that the board sanctions today. And she's overseen vote by mail status or processing, as well as other processes at the wharf. She's been an extremely steady hand, and she'll be overseeing the recount next week that we expect to occur. Not certain, but everything points to the possibility of a countywide recount. Lorene served at my side at the last recounts, both the countywide, it was actually statewide, Board of the Commonwealth last fall. And we learned a lot from that experience that we're going to take into this possible recount that we're anticipating. And Crystal Winterbottom and Michelle Denardis from voter registration just did an outstanding job throughout, preparing all the materials for the poll workers in the blue bags, clear bags, for having an excellent pickup day that was all done for the first time in years here in media. And we received nothing but compliments from the poll workers because they were out a matter of a minute or so. I think they spent more time finding parking than they did actually interacting with our staff. Patty Carfagno has been superb in helping us manage the voter service center downstairs, where customer service and accuracy were paramount. In addition, she was a very strong trainer of all of our poll workers and helped make sure that this room and another facility for the first time in years, for the first time since we've had this new voting equipment, we were able to perform hands-on training as opposed to just book and visual and explaining from a distance. And I also want to cite Siobhan Flores, who is among the folks who have come down with COVID recently. But Siobhan did an incredible job of overseeing the mail operation, as well as all the pickups from the drop boxes, even though we didn't have many staff as we would have liked. And lastly, someone outside of the department who's always been an ally of the Board of Elections, someone whose name probably never gets mentioned in this setting, but he's known all around the county, involved in libraries, but he works in emergency services. Inder Baines. Inder is vital to making sure that our drop-off site at Rose Tree Park is able to function. We still have some tweaks to make on the drop-off site. The first time that we had all of it coming through one site. So we've talked with Upper Providence Police, Park Police, about a different traffic configuration and trying to have more workers at that site. But overall, fairly smooth. We're processing the write-in votes right now. It's going exceptionally well. We should have a write-in report later this week so that any candidates who need to file a petition to accumulate different variations of different names will be able to do that. In terms of testing, this was easily the most comprehensive set of testing protocols that we followed, and that probably any jurisdiction in the Commonwealth followed. We made sure that we double and triple checked all of the redistricting to the point that voter registration caught a flaw in the state's report that would have put a precinct in the wrong legislative district. We double and triple checked all of the candidates on the ballots. We double and triple checked, tested the ballots, literally marking them at the printing facility through a scanner that was programmed to, done this now for 3 elections, so that when we get the real ballots, we're testing the real ballots. We're not testing a production in another jurisdiction in Pennsylvania where they tested, but then the production file turned out to be a different file, and then they had problems later on. We're actually testing at the facility, and we maintain all of those test ballots even before we get the ballots. Then we double-checked all of the deliveries at the warehouse. We checked the contents of every precinct box and quantities. Our Election Day Guide training manual received nothing but praise this year. We were on a conference call and we call it the Ask Anything call with the poll workers, where they can ask just about anything that they might ask about, whether it's photography in the polling place or what happens if they have to call 911, what have you. And we received call after call. They'd finish their questions, say, by the way, the training materials and the training session was the best we'd ever had. So kudos to the training staff. They refined the PowerPoint. They simplified the forms to reduce the potential for errors. We've got 1,444 poll worker records in the controller's office yesterday, so that the poll can be, we'll have probably 200-300 more, about 300 more. So congratulations to Patty on getting that done in a week. And we don't start to get those materials and accumulate them until the Wednesday and Thursday after Election Day. So that's quite a task, and we're hoping to get the checks out sooner than ever before. Our contingency plans worked flawlessly. So with the warehouse and the Sheriff's Department, the print center here, where we needed additional ballots because turnouts were unprecedented in precincts. No one was held up. The poll workers were able to advise us that, hey, it looks like we've gone through half of our ballots and it's only 10 a.m. And, with apology to all the tree fanatics out there, we do kill trees. And we don't hesitate to print up more ballots where even if it looks like there might be a shortage. So that all worked. And with that, I'll take any questions. It was with this election in 15 years that I've really proud of the staff. They just all embraced customer service and under promise and over deliver. Honor to be.
Thank you very much. Certainly thank you to everybody who worked so hard to make this happen. I think a comment that I made last week on Election Day that to me sums things up is, said to somebody, this is like Election Day used to be for elections. The last 2 or 3 years between machines, in law, pandemic, et cetera, really hectic, stressful. But I think because of the great staff that we placed top to bottom and hard work that people did, we had some hiccups. We always are going to have some hiccups. We've got 430 or 428 polling places. We've got half a dozen people potentially in each of those, and things are going to happen, and we deal with it. But it was not the super stressful circumstances that we had a couple of years ago. We're kind of returning to normal where we're doing things efficient and effective manner. Thank you to everyone for your hard work.
Chairman, I'll echo your comments and thank Mr. Allen and his elections at the vote master on primary election day. Sure. Good thing. Times where came up with the staff, everything terrifically. Problems to that day. Doesn't mean always look better, but part primary election.
Ashley?
I'll keep it brief because I know it's harder when you're on Zoom, but I want to echo everything. I had the pleasure of going to many polling locations on Election Day and was asked to was made aware that at least a few of them had last minute call outs. Obviously, we're still in a difficult time with the pandemic. And nonetheless opened on time, and the poll workers were happy to jump up, and ones who hadn't known they were going to work that day jump in to help make sure that the selection was smooth. So thank you to all the staff. Thank you to all the poll workers. It was fun to go to the polls and have the judges of elections say things are going great. The training materials, as Mr. Allen said, were excellent, and it was a beautiful day. And so thank you all for everybody who participated in making that happen the way it did, which was excellent. Thank you.
The next item was the status report and the recounts, and I think jump to provisional ballots. Winter Bottom, you're going to present that for us? And let me, before we begin, how many folks are here because of the provisional ballot? If some folks don't recognize, I think maybe that's why you're here. Is there anybody here?
Shouldn't be any, because unlike past elections, there were no objections trying to eliminate a person's.
All right, good.
There were objections. Get them counted.
I just wanted to survey that so that if anybody was here ready and know what to expect. So, all right, go ahead, Crystal. I'm sorry to interrupt.
And I gave each of you a folder with all the. So last Friday, we started our review at 8:30. We had some observers. We went through all 620 reviewed provisionals with those observers. We did have some objected to that day that were withdrawn on Monday. But we had 389 full count provisionals, 20 partially counted provisionals, and 211 no count provisionals. In those reports, it's also broken down by precinct. The full and partials also which political party ballot was in those provisionals. But it went very smooth.
You have a,
No different recommendation, no.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the board please consider a motion to approve all of the recommendations made by the voter registration staff with regard to the provisional ballots either being found to be full count, partially counted, or not counted.
So moved.
Second. No, but it can wait till after.
go ahead, Ashley.
Mr. Bottom was just wondering if you saw any pattern or anything you could learn from the no count provisionals.
Was there a pattern that you saw with the no count provisionals? Only one that was that stood out to me, I don't know about you, who were not registered with the Democratic or Republican Party who were.
That's correct. We saw a lot less that did not, that fully completed the provisional where they signed the box 2 and the box 4. The judge and minority, a lot were very well filled out this time compared to the last election or before.
Just for the public's sake, we've gone over this, but we did make refinements state envelope, and we approached the vendor who those using signature boxes. We also increased our training significantly. I believe 4 of the 25 questions on the exam to training pay referenced provisional ballots, properly issuing them and properly. So there was some improvement in that process, but as I noted, some people who would have voted a referendum ballot in a previous primary because they were registered with, as an independent or with the Eagles party or whatever, they showed up and tried to vote and were given a provisional ballot that could not be.
I think those provisionals and the training helped tremendously.
Great, thank you.
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, was that the fact that we get the report completed. I look through to see, are there anomalies? Ballots and some report that most in 5, probably less, incredibly spread out. Most had, if they had, really were no all and just have expected.
Kind of return and people are familiar with it. So the motion's been made and seconded. We've had a board comment. Is there any public comment? Yes, sir. Could you come forward and identify yourself?
Very briefly, my name is Carlos Vega. I believe I saw you yesterday. And I'm speaking on behalf of Freddie Godoy, who's also an attorney for the Oz campaign. And with respect to conversations with the campaign and Mr. Godoy, we're just voicing an objection officially as to objecting to the counting of non-dated ballots. And that would be it.
Okay, we can take that up in public comment. We'd love to take that up.
So-
But as long as you're at the podium, I would like to explain.
Well, hold on. We're at this point where we're considering the provisional ballots. Do you have any concerns with provisional ballots that were counted that were not dated, that you identified and objected to?
Yes, those were objected to, and we withdrew some of the objections, and some still remain.
Well, as you stand here today, you have objections or you don't have objections?
No, The email that we received from Mr. Godoy indicated that you had withdrawn all objections.
Okay. And as my conversation with him this morning, because he's on a plane to Nashville to enjoy his life, he just said, just for the record, that we're objecting to non-dated.
Well, which ballot, sir? You have to identify the specific
un-
ballot.
That would
the
be it.
undated
No.
envelopes is entirely different.
And that would be it.
Okay.
We're provisionals right now.
Yeah, we're on provisionals. Do you have, can you identify any specific provisional ballot to which you have an objection?
No.
Okay, thank you. So you have no objections to any of the provisional ballots. All right, that said, is there any other public comment?
May I step away?
Yes, sir.
Certainly, sir.
All right, so we'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the recommendation as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. All right, we're now at, let's do the finance waivers, and then we'll do the public comment at the end. Ms. Jackson, do you have any waivers for us?
So campaign finance received one petition to waive campaign finance fees from a committee known as Friends of Michael J. Siach. He lists difficulties with the U.S. mail at the time and also some health issues. This is the first time that he's asking for a waiver, and he is also seeking to terminate the committee.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the waiver.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? We'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
That motion carries, and that's waived. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. All right, we're now at public comment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi. My name is Marguerite Wilson. I live at 824 Drexel Avenue in Drexel Hill. Have a couple comments.
Sure.
I am one of two people who volunteer to help coordinate the poll coverage in Upper Darby. Okay, so that's my perspective on this. Number one, we got to get our boards paid. In November, it went on and on and on for some people, and the holdup seems to be at the controller's office. They're auditing all the pay sheets, and if a worker didn't put their zip code on the sheet, the pay was withheld. Now, at the end of a 15-hour day, we're lucky if these people remember their names. It's a long, grueling day. And we cautioned our Joes this time about making sure that everything was right in Upper Darby. I don't know about other townships. But there just needs to be a better process for informing the workers that there's a problem and getting it resolved. One of our workers didn't get paid until January 22nd. And it impacts our ability to recruit people because they hear these horror stories about people who didn't get paid for months and months and months. And this is not your staff. And I know auditors are brutal.
We share the responsibility with the controller's office. So I don't want to saddle the criticism on the controller's office. It really isn't all there. Sometimes it's our processes, it's their review. It's a combination, but we are working cooperatively to address this, and this is like, Patty can tell you, I'm all over this issue.
And we would be glad to be the point people to get in touch or use the Joes or somebody, but it just seems like we would hear complaints and nobody had told the person that there was a problem. So.
No, I appreciate you bringing this in. It is a priority for us. I mean, you've heard we've already gotten the substantial number of these to the controller's office, and I do know because as this problem developed, we became involved, and I had personal conversations with the controller, and I know that she is aware of this and doing what she can, and we're going to work diligently with them to make it better because the point is, you're right. People work really hard for this money, and to take months to pay them is not reasonable.
Watching you.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's what gets things done often is people that watch.
Okay, next, we seriously need to look at consolidating precincts. In Upper Darby, we have 6 locations with 4 or more precincts, not all from the same, we call it district, not ward.
Right.
And then there's another 5 with 3. We have 71 precincts in Upper Darby, and if each had a full board of Joe, majority, minority, clerk, and machine, that would be 355 workers. This primary, we had 231 poll workers in the role of Joe, minority, and clerk. Several polls operated with only 2 poll workers, and several polls shared Joes or inspectors, or Joes acted as inspectors and inspectors acted as Joes, just to get them open and running. We had 65 Joes covering 71 precincts, 64 majority inspectors, 60 minority, 42 clerks, and 40 machine. In the 7th district, we're discussing consolidating polls with low turnout, but we're going to be looking at all of our precincts since we just can't find people to staff them anymore. And we suspect this needs to be done countywide because.
May I?
Yeah.
It's an excellent point, and I guarantee you that there is bipartisan, wholehearted support for reducing the number of what we call micro precincts. I have experience doing that. The problem that we have right now is that we are frozen, locked into the precinct lines that exist right now by state law, at least through the 2022 election. So our first ability, so I don't want you to think that we're going to be able to do anything between now and November. We're not. I'm not sure if that was drawn into the law because of redistricting, but they wanted all the counties to lock in their precincts right now through this election. So, but we will be taking a look at this. There, the leadership across Upper Darby and in other communities around the county that have far too many precincts, in my opinion, in everybody's estimation. We're going to look to reduce those. And by reduce,
11/22?
what's that?
She said we can't look at it until after 11/22.
Well, we can look at it, we can't make
We can
changes.
look at it.
Okay, because we want to start looking
We could start
at it.
now, and we will put some materials on the website about how the citizens can petition.
Good, okay.
And then the board can also do it sua sponte on our own, and there's a variety of reasons about population shift and other historical reasons that have led to some of the anomalies that we have. But you're correct. There's a number of communities that very similar to Upper Darby with similar staffing issues, and I know there's one precinct in Upper Darby has less than 100 voters. It's like so. Obviously, there's some places we need to look at.
Okay. Next issue, R72 is currently located at the Delaware County Human Resources Building on 69th Street. And it's staffed by very elderly people who live in the Elysian apartments, and even some of them use walkers. In the primary, someone had decided that the bathrooms didn't have to be accessible. So because it has low turnout in a primary, well, it's not the public that needs them, it's these elderly people. We had to have somebody on call to go pick them up and take, because they can't just walk somewhere, they've got walkers. So we had to have someone on call to pick them up and take them somewhere to use a bathroom. And frankly, I think this may be a health and safety violation to have people working in a location with no access to restrooms.
This
take care
was,
of that. And did anybody call on election day? Because if you call
Yes.
us.
they did.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
this
did.
has been elevated to the county executive director.
Because
On election day.
because the issue there, unfortunately, was that the restrooms are on the 4th floor, and there's an elevator because they were closed for the day, closed for
Yeah.
regular business, they did not have that elevator activated. So
Right, and they said
that
they
will
needed a
be.
guard to be up at the bathrooms for some reason, so.
Yes,
I mean,
that's
the issue is
related to the
if this is
records
the
that are
case,
kept.
Then let's look for someplace else to put the pole.
We will do that.
Understood. But
Anything
the
else?
reason for the guard is there were sensitive records on the floor that couldn't be left unsupervised, apparently.
And I completely understand that. I'm a former federal employee, but believe me, these little old ladies were going to go to the bathroom.
Okay, I'm
We
going to hear
agree.
about the 3-minute rule in a
But,
minute. So is there anything else? Like, we have a 3-minute rule on
Oh,
comments,
okay.
so I don't.
The last thing is real brief. I'm really surprised you didn't mention Christina, because she's an absolute gem, and I hope you all appreciate her as much as I do.
She does. Ms. Iacona works very hard at filling those spots, and
Right.
I certainly appreciate her efforts.
Right. So yay, Christina. Okay, that's it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Other public comment? Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Karen Fritz. I live at 901 Powder Mill Lane in Wynwood, Pennsylvania. It's 8-1, it's Delaware County.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome back.
Thank you. I want to just address some comments today about the overall issues of ballot processing in Delaware County. I recently had the privilege to being an observer at the wharf for many of the days last week during the primary election. And I really wanted to commend you guys for making improvements to the transparency of our elections, allowing observers to be in some sections, moving equipment out into the main canvassing room, showing some tasks on wall-mounted screens. Very hardworking staff. I totally agree with you, Mr. Allen. They were great. But there are some areas that do not seem to be in compliance with the Pennsylvania state guidelines. My major concern is in regards to the observers not having access to the internet room, where the web is accessed to update the unofficial web page and as reflected in the tabulation screen in the canvassing room. While on the surface, this does not seem egregious. The effect is that no observers are allowed where election workers are bringing flash drives and V drives into a closed area accessing the internet where there are no public cameras.
Excuse me, that is not true. We load the V drives right behind where the observers stand. Right behind, and it's not connected to the internet, which seems to be what you seem to be implying.
No, they then take
They're loaded right then and there on the servers that are not networked, that are not connected to the internet, right there, literally 2 feet from where the observers may stand. So we couldn't make it more transparent if we tried.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what you just said, though.
What they do is then they take those flash drives and V drives and they go into another room to the hallway to the left. At least that's what both of the IT people told me. They go into another room to access the internet because those computers are not connected, the computers we can see.
They don't use the V drives in connection with the internet, ma'am. They take the files that are uploaded from the server, they offload those, and then on a different computer that is connected to the internet, they update the files so that people at home can see the election results. They are not using the V drives again. They are safekeeping the V drives in the computer room, yes. So
we saw the IT employees bringing flash drives and V drives out of the observer area into another room and then
yes,
coming back.
After they had loaded them, yes.
After they load the V drives, they take them and put them in a secure room to secure them. They don't leave them laying about.
But they use those drives in another room.
No, they don't.
No.
Correct. That's what you're being told. They don't use them in the other room.
So then
No.
how is the tabulation?
So we're
the
talking,
internet
all right,
updated?
let me try to clarify. We're talking about two different things here.
Yes.
We're talking about V drives, right, which for those of you who don't understand what a V drive is in our parlance, the V drive is the device which
It's a USB, it's a memory device.
the V drive is the device which brings the information from the scanner and uploads it into the central database that accumulates the voter totals. Those are the V drives. Then there's this other flash drive that they take a report from the voter database, put it on a flash drive, use that data to then publicize it, to put it out on the internet. So two separate things. V drives aren't used or utilized outside of the public space. The second item, the flash drive, which is a download of a report from the system, that information is then uploaded to the internet and publicized so that the public who's not in the room can, like you were, can see what's going on.
To be clear, that flash drive contains a copy of what's on the internal database. It's not official. That's why when you read any of the websites, they say unofficial counts. That's just to keep the public advised.
I understand that. What we see as observers are people taking flash drives, taking the V drives, going to a room in the back where there are no cameras, we are not allowed to be in there, and then returning. Sometimes they will put the flash drive, we don't know if it's the same one or not, back into the tabulation computers. So that seems to be an area of concern for me.
Okay, we note your concern.
Okay.
You have other concerns? Your time's up.
Yeah.
Okay, you're already over time, so quickly, please.
Sure. My comments myself are 3 minutes. So I was just
Well, you're at
saying,
minute 5, so go ahead.
okay, but that includes our discussion. I think it would also be helpful to have public cameras with live feed on the exterior of the wharf building, the far back room, and areas not visible to observers, as well as live streaming of the drop boxes, with storage of the video to ensure that the voting process and canvassing is a transparent process and would help to restore the public trust. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Doug.
Is there other public comment? Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Karis Coker, 836 Concord Road, Glen Mills.
Welcome.
On the national news, it's been noted that Pennsylvania is still counting ballots, and others seem to have finished it. Is Delaware County one of the counties that is incomplete yet for the final state tally on the elections?
So it seems like a very simple question. Obviously, this morning we just voted to accept the provisional ballots, right? So things are being counted, but at this point we're down to a very small margin of things that remain to be counted. So yes, things
Okay.
are still being counted. We're not going to count, certain provisional military overseas, et cetera,
I understand.
until we get down the road. But
Okay.
what we have.
Fair enough, but I do hope that in the future there's some way to wrap this up tighter. This is unreasonable to be extended this long.
Well,
We will have to change state and federal laws in
Well,
order to do
okay,
that.
good. I hope you'll join me in support of such a change. So
No, I wouldn't disenfranchise individuals. Let me explain.
okay, I would rather go ahead with my remarks if I may.
Go ahead.
and
When
you
you're
may
done,
co-
you can make all your remarks. We won't interrupt. And then when you're done, you let us know you're done, and then we'll respond.
Okay. Delaware County had an astonishing number of drop boxes compared to other counties in the state. That's a matter of concern. Drop boxes bypass the federal law of fraud in lieu of if someone were to commit such a crime in federal mail service. The machines, it's been demonstrated over and over throughout the country.
I said I wasn't going to interrupt, but I'm not sure what you mean when you say the machines.
Okay, the voting machines under various names, but generally connected, the operating systems of the electronic voting machines, scanners, and so on and so forth. And I have a concern also about are there built-in manufactured elements to the paper itself on the ballots so that you can make a distinction between an authentic ballot and one that's just been run off on a copier.
Yes.
Because some of the people who have handled the ballot said, I knew that there was something going on here. Not necessarily Delaware County, though frankly, with what else I've seen and heard, I would not say that Delaware County is exempt, but the testimony that I heard was not related to
Yeah.
Delaware County.
The balloting system that was selected in Delaware County has a unique barcode on every ballot for the security measures so that not one ballot could be scanned twice. It can't be photocopied and used again. It can't be used in another precinct. So the security measures in place right now prevent the very
Apparently, the
concern that you're
machines that are doing the counting can be programmed to bypass those security measures so that ballots can be counted multiple times, or other ballots can be introduced.
Are you saying that has happened?
No, I'm not saying that it has happened in other places. I'm concerned that it be prevented from happening in Delaware County.
We have that protection in place. Okay.
Okay.
Do you have anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, with regard to the remarks about tightening it up, as I understood it, it's with a provisional ballot under federal law, we have to give voters a certain amount of time to be able to present identification, to verify that they are who they said they were, and to allow their vote to be counted so that they're not disenfranchised because of an administrative error at an election authority. Secondly, you're talking about tightening it up. You're disenfranchising the military and overseas voters who have right now under law, you can shake your head all you want, but this is the truth. Right now, under law, they had until yesterday, Tuesday, May 24th, to get their ballot to us. Now, if you want to petition Harrisburg to change that law and disenfranchise our men and women overseas, that's your right, but I'm not going to do it. Well, not stopping the count on Thursday or Friday will have the net effect of disenfranchising military overseas voters who, through no fault of their own, their ballot arrives a day or 2 or 3 or 4 after Election Day. All right? That's my opinion, and I think it's pretty fact-based.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was a poll watcher.
Can you identify yourself
I'm
first?
Kathy Buckley. I was a poll watcher
And
from
your address, ma'am?
Antler Drive in Delaware County.
In what town?
Delaware, Edgemont.
Edgemont. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, I was timed between 8 and 10. When I got there, the place was closed.
I'm sorry, you may have said, which precinct was it?
Edgemont, the church, the Lima church right on 352.
Okay,
That's
we can
Edgemont
figure out.
Precinct 2.
We can figure that out, but I just wanted to get an idea of what we were talking about, but we'll figure out the number later on. But go ahead with your story.
I was not working there. I was working at Union, where the Union building, where the mail-in ballots were. Okay, when I got there, the place was closed. Apparently everyone left at 1, and then one person left at 2. The police also left at the same time. The guy that was sitting there just got there, so there was no one watching any ballots between 1, 2 in the morning and the early morning shift. He told me that he was there to watch the people, not the ballots. So there's problem number 1.
Well, they were locked up at 1 a.m.
Let's let her finish, and then
Okay.
we'll respond to everything at the end. Go ahead.
So the ballots were not watched. While I was sitting there, they strolled in about 8:45-ish. I was originally told it was going to 8:30. They were going to start 8:45. They all started coming in. While I was standing there, there was a woman with a walker in the doorway, protecting everything. People were coming and going. A guy came out and goes, "I have to get the ballots from the car." Another woman says, "I'll go with you." Where's the chain of custody? The story gets even weirder. I'm sitting there. They told me I had to wait in the lobby. They threw me out. I was not allowed to watch the ballots. I was there to be a ballot watcher, and they told me I had to go downstairs in the lobby. I said, "Well, how am I going to know when you're going to start?" The policeman goes, "Oh, I'll take your number." So he wrote down my number, never asked my name, never asked anything, handed it to the woman with the stroller. So we have no chain of custody. When we finally got in to watch, we were put in a pen. We were not allowed to walk around. We were not allowed to see anything. We had to stay in this little area. I could not see anything in the back of the building. I could not see the back room, and I could not see the side room. There was a meeting that went on in the side room, closed door. Everyone took off their masks when they were in the meeting. When they came out of the meeting, everyone threw their masks back on. I don't know what went on in the meeting. I have no clue. I'm not allowed to walk. I was supposed to stay in the little area. I was not allowed to move. I was not allowed to observe anything. So there's a lot of things that I have questions about. One, chain of custody. I have a picture of the guy, because I was in the lobby, of the guy that brought in a bag full, in a black bag, and the woman with them. I don't know where the ballots came from. Is it standard to leave ballots in a car unwatched?
No.
Okay, so here's what I want to do.
Okay.
It would appear to me that the matters that you're raising perhaps deal with the security of the election. So Mr. Parks is going to refer this to the district attorney's office, and their investigators will come. They will get this information. They will get copies of these photographs, and they will investigate this. because, you know, it's difficult for us to sit here today and you talk about the guy with the black bag in the car and so on and so
I have
forth.
pictures,
So-
so I can,
Okay,
we
so
can identify it.
here's what we're going to do. Under the statute, right, when these types of matters are raised to us, we refer them to the district attorney's office, and the district attorney's investigators will communicate with you and get this information, and we will investigate it and we will report back. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Who's next?
My name is Dory Gowdy. I live at 2417 Rosewood Lane, Havertown Township in Delaware County.
Good morning.
Good morning. I was working as a clerk in Ward 6th Ward. We had in the building we were in on election day, were precincts 62, 63, and 64. I was trained as a poll watcher and a poll worker, and I ended up being a poll worker on that day. And as I understand, based on the training I received, candidates and poll watchers may be inside while closing down the machines as long as these persons are already inside the polling location before 8 p.m. If you're outside, you will not be allowed to re-enter after the doors shut at 8 p.m. So at around 8:05, a candidate and two citizens from that location were allowed to come into our area of the polling, and they were asking for our paper tape ballots to quickly get them to them. And I just think that was not really following the rules, and it seemed like a concerning thing that they were allowed to come in. And I was a poll watcher last time in November of 2021, and I saw the same thing occurring. But at the time, the training wasn't really as explicit as it was this past year to realize that that was something that was not actually following the rules. I just wanted to make that.
And you know the identities of these persons?
I do. I didn't want to make mention of it. So.
All right. Well, we'll do the same thing. You can give the information.
I know two of the three people, and I know the role of the third person was related to somebody that was a judge of elections.
We'll take a look at it.
I appreciate the question, and you're right. They should not have been allowed in. They were. But if you could please repeat to me the precinct
Sure.
numbers so that we can write to all the poll workers.
It's
and
at the
advise
Coopertown School.
It's at, pardon?
Coopertown School, was it?
No, it was at
6-2?
Chestnut Wold Elementary School.
Chestnut Wold,
So it's
sorry.
precincts 6-2, 6-3, and 6-4. They was all under the same umbrella of,
And I'm sorry, man, I missed, what was your position there?
I was a poll worker, a clerk.
Clerk.
But I had already been trained for this particular election as a poll watcher and a poll worker, and it just so happened they needed a poll worker, so I decided to be, but I observed that, and there's a person who actually was the poll watcher who informed me about that. So at the time, I was trying to scramble around, try to get the cages, you're just very busy at the end of the night, and that happened. And to hear that they were asking for the tapes when we weren't even done them was, after the fact, I'm realizing I wanted to come and address this.
Well,
So these would be the people that were working outside or had watcher certificates?
One was a candidate, and two individuals, I do not know what their role, but they were not inside at all during the whole day until at the end. And this is not the first time I've observed this. Last time in November of 2021, I also observed people entering in after the 8 o'clock shutdown of the doors. So.
Right. And did they interfere at all with the processing or canvassing?
No, but they were saying, come on, can we get like that kind of thing? We get it posted and it's on the window for people to see. Is there any reason why like 5 or 10 more minutes could be, and not have them interrupt the process of saying are the
They
tapes
felt like
done?
you were rushed.
I wasn't. I was involved in watching that people seemed to be rushed when that was happening, and they scrambled to try to hurry up.
So that wasn't in the polling place where you were?
That was in the polling place at the table that I was at. Yes.
And I asked, so did you feel rushed?
This is my first time poll working. I'm observing other people being asked to be like, where's the paper tapes? Not in a derogatory way or in a way that felt threatening. It was just, an extra, it's enough to deal with already, to have to say, are the tapes done?
I hear what you're saying. It wasn't that they necessarily interfered, but it was kind of an annoyance and a distraction.
And they shouldn't be in there anyway.
And we should
is what
follow
I'm
the
saying.
rules.
That's the whole thing.
I hear what
We were
you're
going to
saying.
get the job done. It's not like we weren't, and just have a little patience. So I'm just saying it wasn't really following the rules, and I just felt like,
This may be the type of thing where once we know who they are, we can talk to them and say, listen, don't go charging in there at 8:05. It'll be ready soon enough.
Yeah, all right, I appreciate all
I
of your
understand that's kind of what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Also, one quick nuance for your benefit and any other poll workers who are watching. Candidates candidates typically will not have watcher certificates. They certainly will not have them for themselves, so they can't be in the polling unless they have a watcher certificate for some other candidate, which sometimes does happen. They can't be in the polling place until it closes. So there's a bit of a transition there when then candidates can come in without a watcher certificate to watch the count. So at 8:05, to me, that's still kind of within that window when a candidate who's not allowed in there before 8, can come in. The other folks, that's a different scenario, but there's going to be, you have to have probably a little grace period for these candidates to go from outside where they're not allowed to be in once the polls close to come inside, and then they are entitled to see the count. So that's just one little, it's a practical thing. Let's use, reasonable judgment, give a little grace for those candidates to get from outside to inside. But if it's 8:15, I would say, at that point, that's pretty late for a candidate to be showing up.
Well,
so that was the only nuance I'd add.
No. They were 3 of them together, and I guess if you're going to be like following a rule, it's 8 o'clock to me. I mean, that's just my opinion. If you want to have leeway, that's fine.
Oh, understood. I mean, in a perfect world, the candidate's waiting, and as soon as they close the door to the public, then the candidate steps in and watches the count from the very beginning. That's the perfect world, but, we have to also be practical and reasonable.
But one of those things I'll say is that this is something that's happened every time that I've heard, too. It's not just the first. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you for working the polls.
Morning. Hi, my name is Joy Schwartz, 514 Lombardi Road, Drexel Hill. And so I also was a poll watcher and I was an observer at the wharf for a very short period of time. Plan to go back today. So my comments, I have a couple of things. First, I have a question for the Board of Elections, and that is, do you folks have anything to do with the printing of the sample ballots, or is that something that is in the purview of the parties?
By sample ballots, you mean the palm cards that the parties hand out?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we have nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do with that. Okay, fine. All right. The other thing was, I also have concerns. I wanted to thank, first of all, the election board for the 10 cameras on the wharf. I think that was really, really helpful. But I still have some questions about chain of custody and transparency. And one of them is not to disparage the lady who very efficiently organized the pickup of the ballots from the drop boxes, which I'm sure was a challenge because there are so many drop boxes, as was stated earlier, in our county. But I'm concerned about the lack of oversight in that process and wondering if it's possible, or it would invite, the possibility of somebody picking up ballots and maybe saying, oh, I like these, I don't like these, I'm going to, throw these out, and would never accuse anybody of doing that, but I am concerned about it, and I believe that there should be some oversight in that respect. Yes, sir.
The point is that the employees of the Board of Elections who pick up the ballots at the drop boxes are potentially unscrupulous, and that there should be some supervision of them, the same as the mailman who picks up the mail at every mailbox in Delaware County could be unscrupulous, and we should supervise them too. Oh, sorry. My point was this. It seemed to me what you're saying is you have a concern that potentially the Board of Elections employees who pick up the ballots from the drop boxes could do something improper. So that
couldn't they?
You feel they should be supervised, but would you also think that,
considering the atmosphere.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I'm very respectful when you're speaking. I don't interrupt you. When I'm speaking, you can't talk over me, okay?
Certainly.
All right. So, by the same token, there's mailmen all across Delaware County, Pennsylvania, the United States picking up. Should they be supervised?
Well, when you're, interesting question. However, you're dealing with drop boxes, particularly that contain ballots. You're not dealing with junk mail and bills and all these other things. So you're talking about a situation where someone could have the opportunity to tamper with those ballots. And it's also been known that that's been done by certain mail carriers in the U.S. Post Office. They have, been caught taking, election materials or political materials out of the mail for candidates they didn't like. So I think that it's not unreasonable to at least consider that, considering we have just about half of all the drop-in boxes in the state of Pennsylvania. Our county has a lot of people in it, but we're small in terms of geography. Do we really need, what is it, 45, 42 drop boxes in our county? I really don't think so. And if we are going to have that many drop boxes, let's put a better eye on them, at least. Now, I know that the issue of the mail-in ballots and the drop boxes is a state issue. From what I understand, the issue of the machines is not. You guys could get rid of these machines if you wanted to, and maybe we could go back to hand-counted ballots within the precincts and actually have a more efficient election that doesn't take an entire week. I know that to some people that sounds ludicrous, but they just did it in France, and I think that that would be a better choice. I also have questions concerning just the transportation of materials, and I know that prior to 2020, everything was processed here somewhere in the courthouse. I believe the materials were brought here, they were dropped off here, and everything was counted here, and the results were tabulated here. I had the opportunity to go to the Wharf building, and first of all, it's an amazing building, but the remoteness of the building and the number of exits, entrances, doors, elevators, in and outs, even in the counting room, was a concern to me because it just seemed to be, it didn't inspire confidence in me that things would be secure. And while the cameras are very helpful, there's still areas, as has been mentioned before, that are not visible to observers. So I'm just putting that out there for you. I also had another concern about people being in the counting area when there are no observers there, and just wondering, how does that work? Because I was there one night, Mr. Allen, I saw you, and I came in at 2 in the morning. I guess you guys decided you've done enough for the day and decided to close up, and I said, well, I'll leave when everybody leaves, and no, you have to leave now, and I did, I left. But I believe that there were a couple of IT guys in the room after I left, and even after perhaps Mr. Allen left, that were remaining in the building. And so it just begs the question, of course, we couldn't see them on the screens. Where were those IT guys? Did they leave? Did they stay there overnight? Did they have a sleepover? So, I'm not sure.
No, they didn't have a
Mr.
sleepover.
Allen, let's just let her finish. Do you have anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Allen in a moment will address the specifics that you had. I could tell you, as you observed, we do follow the state law, and that most of these things that you're asking for changes about creating observers to watch the drop boxes being emptied, et cetera, those are going to be state law issues that are going to be properly before the legislature. You had some issues about the physical security of the wharf facility. Mr. Allen can address that. There's one door, it's locked, it's manned by the county police. There's a second door that's a fire exit door in the back that's also visible by the police. So I don't think that there's this issue of multiple doors and entrances, et cetera. I don't know that I understand that. And then Mr. Allen, you can address the point about the closing for the evening and what takes place.
Okay, our day starts at 5:30 a.m. and by 1:15 a.m., certain staff tend to get exhausted, and you do have to shut down for the evening.
Understandable.
What I find troubling about your remarks is that also the observers were able to see that we announced right around 1:15 that we're packing up for the night, and we move all of the balloting materials into rooms with cameras that are locked for the night. That all happened. You showed up after everything was put away,
I
locked
showed up
up.
at 1:45.
Right. You showed up after everything was locked up, put away, and we were closed for the night. And this person said to me, I'm not leaving until you leave.
Oh, I didn't put it like that.
Yes, you did.
Really, Mr. Allen.
Well, you're entitled to your own memory. But I also have, police who witnessed it as well. I went back to my office, and believe it or not all of what I do involves supervising ballots. There are also emails, there are phone calls, there are messages, or everything else. Have to, send correspondence to different people. And so I finished up for the night, and as is her right, was down in the parking lot, waiting for me. So I guarantee you the two individuals who were there in the computer room, preparing reports that are required by state law, did not walk across. They would have been on camera if they did. They did not walk across to any of the secured areas where the balloting materials were stored. At a certain point in every election jurisdiction, it's time to close, and we close to the public, but we don't access the locked up materials. So.
Okay, I didn't know about the locked up materials, and.
Because you weren't there. You showed up half hour after we closed, and you said, I'm not leaving until you leave.
Well, I said I would leave when everybody else left.
Okay,
No.
so we're way over time. If you have
Thank
any other
you.
comments of substance, all right. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. The next meeting date, I think we're not going to adjourn this meeting, we're just going to recess it. We'll leave it open in case we have to come back. But we are scheduled to come back on June 6th.
June 6th will be the certification
For
meeting.
certification. We may be back before then if something comes up. We will, of course, be monitoring the activities relating to whether or not there will be a official recount, as well as there's certain court matters for those who are following along with Mr. Vega and Mr. Goudet and their efforts and their candidates' efforts and the efforts of the lawyers of the opposing candidates.
One point of clarification.
Yes.
Per the state, the Department of State directive yesterday, we did process the undated envelopes, but they were not added into the counts.
Okay.
We reported the results of those, which in the race involving the Republican contest for U.S. Senate resulted in 3 votes for candidate McCormick and 2 votes for candidate Oz. We've reported those to the state, but they are not yet fed into the results because we understand there's pending litigation. There are differences of agreement on this. And so just
And
to
we're
be
following
clear,
the DOS guidance on that.
we strictly followed the
Process.
Department of State's guidance. We waited for it because we weren't going to act on our own. So, thank you.
And it is a close race, but we're still talking about one net vote in the 4th largest county in the state, so.
And, Mr. Chairman, can I comment on that?
Yes,
And
go
I
ahead.
know we don't have that issue here before us. If June 6th, if that's the date we vote on the certification, then it will be there. I have read the, prior Pennsylvania Supreme Court cases. I read the decision of the Third Circuit judges, and sometimes it makes me question how people get to be circuit court judges. But I will say this, my personal opinion at this point in time is that the Pennsylvania statute is clear, that the voter must date the outside envelope in order for it to be a valid vote. Now, I think that, and I want to be consistent with people that have attended these meetings before. I know I probably sound like a broken record, but I want to follow the statute. And I think that in order to instill confidence in our system, and most people, I believe, have confidence in our system. Some people don't. We've heard some of those comments here this morning. But to make it as transparent as possible and instill confidence in the system, I think we should abide by the statute, strictly as it's written. That doesn't mean that I would have written the statute the same way or that I even agree with how the statute is written. But nonetheless, the statute's a statute. We draw lines all the time. If somebody comes in to vote at 8:05, we don't let them vote. If mail shows up at 8:10 at night, we don't count those votes. If somebody is 17 years and 11 months, we don't let them vote, even though they may be more mature than many 18-year-olds or 50-year-olds. So as the election code goes along, it sets boundaries, it sets lines. And here, whether good, bad, or indifferent, the legislature, as approved by the governor, has set a line that says they should be dated. And I think as we are in this unfortunate era of lack of confidence from some people in our election system, we should align as close as possible to the statute. So that's why I want to make it, it may not be a big deal. I doubt that the Third Circuit, the U.S. Supreme Court, or the Pennsylvania Supreme Court will care what John McBlain has to say about this issue. And it may not make a big difference in this election in terms of, I just heard that for the first time, the results that there was one net vote to one Senate candidate here. So, but, you know, to be consistent with the positions I've expressed, I think we should, you know, rather than change the rules after the fact, which is, I think, is what the Third Circuit has done, or what it appears that they may be talking about doing. My position is that those undated ballots should not be counted. I may be in the minority in that. I know that the Pennsylvania Department of State has different advice for us, but I just wanted to state that's my position.
Thank you, John, and it's noted. And just to be clear and blunt with the public, you know, and this was actually yesterday, maybe some of you heard Mr. Allen on KYW radio, but he said it very succinctly. In 2020, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said that we were to count those ballots. In 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said we were to not count those ballots. And in 2022, now the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the federal court, has said we should count those ballots. And now there's another case pending, and I think it's now in the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And I would imagine the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania will give us some direction in the next few days. So we will follow the law and do what we are directed to do by the courts. Ashley, do you have any further or final comments?
No, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for those final comments that you made. That's my position. We need for the law lands on this.
I had two last things before we adjourn. First of all, Mr. Martin came in and went out. I don't know that we thank Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin is the county solicitor, and although Mr. Parks is our solicitor, Mr. Martin does a lot of work to support the Board of Elections, and particularly on Election Day, and I wanted to thank him, but he slipped out before I was able to. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Rush, who does a terrific job with the technology and making this meeting happen. So we stand in recess.
Mr. Chairman, our agenda indicates a gathering of the Voter Registration Commission. I do not know if there's specific business.
No, let's, Ms. Winterbaum, do we have any business?
No, it was just the provisional updates. Nothing further for voter reg.
All right, so we won't convene that. We'll just leave that. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. You know, Jim, you actually printed it on the bottom of the agenda that to convene the meeting, and I saw it when I